I did not create a transition plan or write up best practices. Gerald had accepted my resignation effective immediately, which meant I had zero obligation to do anything beyond pack my stuff and leave. Could I have been the bigger person and left everything documented anyway? Sure. But Gerald had spent 4 months micromanaging me, dismissing my work, and then told me to my face that I was easily replaceable and that procurement wasn't rocket science. He wanted to learn that lesson the hard way. Fine by me. My 2 assistants, Katie and Ben, stopped by while I was boxing things up. They both looked shell-shocked. Is it true? Katie asked. You're leaving today? Yep. Because of Gerald? I looked at her. She was sharp, mid-20s, had been with me for about 2 years. She'd figure it out eventually, but I wasn't going to trash talk on my way out. I got a better offer, I said. Sometimes you have to make moves. Ben nodded. He was quieter than Katie, but equally capable. Had a good head for numbers and supplier analytics. Are they hiring where you're going? I wrote down Linda's contact information and handed it to him. If things get weird here, reach out. Can't promise anything, but she's building a team. They both thanked me. Katie looked like she wanted to say more, but I could see Ben pulling her back. They knew what was coming, even if they didn't want to admit it. The department was going to be chaos without someone who knew the relationships, and they'd be the ones dealing with it firsthand. I felt bad for them. They were good people who didn't deserve to get caught in the fallout of Gerald's ego. But I couldn't save them. They'd have to make their own calls about whether to stick around. Update 4. My manager blocked my raise and smirked, saying, if you quit, I'll replace you by Friday. So, I let him try for 1 week. And by day 5, the vendor contracts collapsed and legal got dragged into the mess. On my way out, I stopped by to see Rachel in HR. She's good people. Been there longer than anyone and actually cares about employees, which is rare in HR. Most HR departments exist to protect the company. Rachel actually tried to balance that with looking out for employees. I'm heading out, I told her. Gerald said you'd handle the exit paperwork. Her eyebrows went up. He's accepting your resignation effective immediately. Yep. She sighed and pulled up something on her computer. That's not standard protocol. We're supposed to have proper knowledge transfer, offboarding procedures, exit interviews done at the end of the notice period, but okay, I'll process everything. Do you have time for an exit interview now? Sure. We went into one of the small conference rooms. Rachel had a standard form with the usual questions. She went through them methodically, typing my responses. Why are you leaving? Better opportunity at a competitor, more money, better growth prospects. What could we have done better? Could have addressed compensation concerns before it became an issue. Would you recommend this company to others? Depends on the role and the management. She paused at that last one. Can you elaborate? The company has good people and solid fundamentals, I said carefully. But recent management changes have created some challenges. I'd recommend it to someone who's a good fit for the current leadership style. Rachel typed it then stopped and looked at me. Off the record? Sure. Gerald's going to screw this up, isn't he? I met her eyes. I think Gerald believes procurement is simpler than it actually is. He'll figure it out eventually. Question is how much it'll cost before he does. She nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I pushed back on his decision to let you go immediately. Told him we needed a proper transition period. He overruled me. Said he wanted to send a message that nobody's irreplaceable. Well, I said he's about to find out if that's true. Can I give you some advice? Sure. Document everything about today, the time Gerald accepted your resignation. Exactly what he said. The fact that he terminated you effective immediately. Save any emails just in case there's any weirdness later with final pay or benefits or if he tries to claim you abandoned your position. I appreciated that. Rachel was covering her own bases too, protecting the company from potential liability, but she was also looking out for me. That's the balance good HR people walk. Will do, I said. And Rachel, you might want to update your own resume. I don't think this is going to get better before it gets worse. She gave me a sad smile. Already started. We shook hands and I walked out to my car around 5:30. Threw my box in the back seat. Felt lighter than I had in months. The weekend was quiet. I didn't think about work. Didn't stress about Monday. Just enjoyed being free. Monday morning at my new company was standard orientation stuff, paperwork, meeting the team. But the atmosphere was completely different. People actually seemed engaged. Nobody walking on eggshells. Linda met with me for about 2 hours. She was direct, asked good questions, clearly had a strategic vision. I hired you because you're an expert, she said. I'm not going to micromanage you. You'll have autonomy to make decisions. Keep me informed on major stuff, but day to day, that's your domain. Music to my ears. I spent the rest of the week getting oriented, meeting suppliers, understanding contracts, figuring out systems. Good work without constant interference. I didn't think about my old job at all until Tuesday afternoon when my phone rang. Unknown number, but local area code. I answered, hey, it's James from Reynolds Industrial. Is this a good time? James was the account manager for our biggest aluminum supplier. Reynolds provided about 40% of our raw materials. The contract was worth roughly $2 million annually. Hey, James, I said. What's up? I got a weird email from your company yesterday. Someone named Gerald asking to renegotiate our contract terms. Wanted better pricing and shorter lead times. It was pretty aggressive. I almost laughed. I don't work there anymore. Resigned last week. There was a pause. You're serious? Yeah, I'm at a new company now. Damn, James said. I didn't know. Who's handling procurement? No idea. Gerald's the VP of operations. I guess he's managing it directly until they hire someone. Another pause. Well, that explains the tone. Look, I'm going to be straight with you. We've worked together for 4 years. You've always been fair and you understand our constraints. This Gerald guy sent me an email demanding we cut prices by 15% and reduce lead times by a week. No discussion, just demands. That sounds like Gerald. Yeah, well, I told him we can't do that. Our margins are already tight. He responded saying if we can't meet his terms, he'll find another supplier. So, I'm calling to give you a heads up that we're probably pulling out of that contract. I felt a cold spike of satisfaction. That's your call to make, James. For what it's worth, Reynolds has been a great partner. I appreciated working with you. Same here, he said. If you need a supplier at your new company, give me a ring. I'll take care of you. Will do. Thanks for the heads up. I hung up and sat there for a minute. Reynolds pulling out was a massive problem. Finding a replacement would take weeks, and getting pricing anywhere close to what we'd negotiated would be nearly impossible. Part of me felt bad for the people who'd have to deal with the fallout. But then I remembered Gerald's smirk, the way he told me I'd be replaced by Friday. I went back to work. Over the next 3 days, I got 7 more calls. Chris from Tri-State Plastics, our steel supplier, the packaging vendor, all of them with the same story. Gerald had sent aggressive emails demanding price cuts, threatening to replace them if they didn't comply. Every single one was walking away. I didn't lie to any of them, just told them the truth. I'd left, Gerald was handling procurement, and they should make whatever decision made sense for their business. Friday afternoon, Rachel called me. She sounded stressed. I need to ask you something off the record, she said. Okay. Did you do anything to sabotage the supplier relationships before you left? I kept my voice calm. No, I resigned, packed my desk, and left. Gerald chose to accept my resignation effective immediately, so I didn't even work my notice period. That's what I thought. I had to ask because Gerald is losing his mind. Apparently, every major supplier is either threatening to terminate or has already sent cancellation notices. He's claiming you must have poisoned them against the company. I didn't have to, I said. Gerald did that himself. What do you mean? He contacted every supplier demanding price cuts and better terms. Didn't ask, didn't negotiate, just sent aggressive emails saying if they didn't comply, he'd replace them. Turns out vendors don't respond well to being threatened. Rachel was quiet for a moment. He actually said that. According to multiple suppliers, yes. Jesus, how bad is it? I asked. Bad. Operations is freaking out because we don't have enough raw materials to meet production schedules next month. The CEO is furious. Legal is getting involved because some of these contracts have penalty clauses for early termination. It's a disaster. I felt a grim satisfaction settle in my chest. That's unfortunate. They're talking about trying to hire you back, offering more money, whatever you want. Not interested, I figured. Look, I'm sorry about how this went down. You deserved better. Thanks, Rachel. I appreciate that. She sighed. Good luck with the new job. You, too. And Rachel, start updating your resume. This company is going to be bleeding talent for a while. Already on it, she said and hung up. I sat there thinking about Gerald, wondering if he understood yet what he'd done. Whether he realized that replacing me wasn't the hard part. Replacing 6 years of relationship building and trust was impossible. Final update. My manager blocked my raise and smirked, saying, if you quit, I'll replace you by Friday. So, I let him try for 1 week. And by day 5, the vendor contracts collapsed and legal got dragged into the mess. The following week, I started getting LinkedIn messages, people from my old company reaching out asking if my new employer was hiring, sharing stories about how chaotic things had gotten. Apparently, Gerald had tried to personally manage procurement while searching for my replacement. It went about as well as you'd expect. He didn't understand lead times, couldn't negotiate worth a damn, and burned every bridge I'd spent years building. Operations ground to a halt after 2 weeks. They couldn't get enough raw materials to maintain production schedules. Assembly lines sat idle. Deadlines were missed. Customers started canceling orders. The financial hit was staggering. Between lost revenue, penalty clauses, and emergency sourcing at inflated prices, the company was looking at losses in the millions. Gerald tried to blame me. Sent an email to the whole company saying I'd sabotaged the supplier relationships out of spite, that I'd violated my professional responsibilities. Linda, my new boss, forwarded it to me with a note. Want me to have our legal team send a cease and desist? I wrote back, not necessary. Truth is a defense, and I didn't do anything wrong. Let him dig his own grave. Sure enough, 2 days later, Rachel forwarded me another email. This one from the CEO to the entire staff. It was a masterclass in corporate damage control. The email acknowledged that there had been communication issues with suppliers following a management transition. It outlined steps the company was taking to rebuild relationships and stabilize operations. It thanked employees for their patience during a difficult period, and buried in the middle was a single line. Gerald Patterson is no longer with the company. Effective immediately. I showed it to Linda. They actually fired him, she said. 6 months and he torched the place. Gerald was very good at burning bridges. Just not much else. One of my former colleagues reached out a week later. We grabbed coffee and she filled me in on the fallout. The board had investigated. Turned out Gerald had inflated his resume. The company in Ohio hadn't just gone under after he left. It had failed partially because of his decisions as VP poor vendor management. Same playbook he tried at our company. He'd also been cherry-picking data in his reports to make himself look good. The CEO had been making decisions based on incomplete information for months. Best part, Gerald tried to negotiate a severance package during his termination, threatened to sue. The lawyers pointed to the morality clause in his contract. Gross negligence voids severance. He walked away with nothing. 3 more people have left since you did. My colleague said the company hired a crisis firm to rebuild supplier relationships, but it's not going well. They promoted Danielle to interim procurement manager. She's overwhelmed. I felt bad for Danielle. Good kid. Impossible situation. Tell her she can call me if she needs advice, I said. Off the record. We finished our coffee and I headed back to my new office. Sometimes the best revenge is just stepping aside and letting someone destroy themselves. 3 months later, I got an email from the CEO of my old company. It was carefully worded, professional, but the desperation leaked through anyway. He apologized for how my departure had been handled. Acknowledged that the company had made serious mistakes in management. Asked if there was any possibility I'd consider returning. The offer was generous. $110,000 base salary, profit sharing, a signing bonus to cover what I'd lost in unvested benefits, a guaranteed seat in management meetings, basically everything I'd wanted before Gerald showed up. I read it twice. Then I forwarded it to Linda with a subject line. FYI, not taking this. She wrote back, good. We like having you here. I responded to the CEO politely, thanked him for the offer, explained that I was happy in my current role and not looking to make a change. Wished him and the company well. He wrote back within an hour, asked if I'd at least consider consulting, helping them rebuild the supplier relationships. He'd pay whatever my rate was. I thought about it for maybe 30 seconds. Then I wrote back, I appreciate the offer, but I'm not available. However, I'd recommend reaching out to James at Reynolds Industrial and Chris at Tri-State Plastics. They're both professional and fair. If your new procurement manager approaches them with respect instead of demands, they might be willing to restart conversations. Good luck. I never heard back. Life moved on. I settled into my new role, built relationships with a new set of suppliers, implemented some of the ideas I'd never gotten to try at my old company, got a promotion after 8 months. My old company limped along. They eventually stabilized, but the damage was permanent. Revenue was down. Market share eroded. Several longtime customers had switched to competitors during the supply chain chaos and never came back. Last I heard, they were considering selling to a larger firm. The CEO who'd emailed me had retired early. The board had cleaned house. All because Gerald thought procurement wasn't rocket science. 3 months later, I got an email from the CEO of my old company. It was carefully worded professional, but the desperation leaked through anyway. He apologized for how my departure had been handled. Acknowledged that the company had made serious mistakes in management. Asked if there was any possibility I'd consider returning. The offer was generous. $110,000 base salary, profit sharing, a signing bonus to cover what I'd lost in unvested benefits, a guaranteed seat in management meetings, basically everything I'd wanted before Gerald showed up. I read it twice. Then I forwarded it to Linda with a subject line, FYI, not taking this. She wrote back, good, we like having you here. I responded to the CEO politely, thanked him for the offer, explained that I was happy in my current role and not looking to make a change. Wished him and the company well. He wrote back within an hour, asked if I'd at least consider consulting, helping them rebuild the supplier relationships. He'd pay whatever my rate was. I thought about it for maybe 30 seconds. Then I wrote back, I appreciate the offer, but I'm not available. However, I'd recommend reaching out to James at Reynolds Industrial and Chris at Tri-State Plastics. They're both professional and fair. If your new procurement manager approaches them with respect instead of demands, they might be willing to restart conversations. Good luck. I never heard back. 6 months after I left, Katie reached out. She'd taken my advice and applied to Linda's team, got hired as a buyer. We grabbed lunch her first week. It's so different here, she said. People actually communicate. Management listens. I forgot what it felt like to not be stressed all the time. What happened to Ben? I asked. He left 2 months after you did. Got a job in logistics at a distribution company. Better pay, better hours. And the old place? Katie shook her head. They hired someone to replace you eventually. Some guy from a consulting firm. He lasted 3 months before he quit. Then they hired someone else who's trying to rebuild everything from scratch. But the damage is done. Half the suppliers won't work with them anymore. The ones who stayed jacked up their prices because they know the company's desperate. What about operations? Revenue's down 30% from last year. They laid off about 60 people in manufacturing. The CEO announced his retirement last month. Word is they're shopping the company around trying to find a buyer. I nodded. Wasn't surprising, but still sobering to hear. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.